On November 18th, 2017, at last year's MINECON, MOJANG announced 1.14, the update Aquatic. In the presentation video, they teased features such as the Trident, new water mechanics, and Coral, which was pretty exciting to say the least. As a whole, I think we all agree MINECON was a little hard to watch at times, but that video was cool. My name is Waddles, and today I'd like to take a look at the coming update, which I am pretty excited for, and ask something I've been thinking about. Is the update Aquatic too big? Is it too big for its own good? Let me know what you think down below after hearing me out, or maybe what you think right now based on what I just asked. And while you're down there, drop a like and maybe consider subscribing. Okay, enough of that, back to MINECON. So the water features were teased, and as a whole, the general feeling of the community was pretty excited, concerned about the water mechanics, but excited. Excluding Mob B, the update was to focus on water content, and that would be coming out in the spring of 2018. This would be the first time the Java Edition and Bedrock Edition were seeing new features at the same time and getting to play with them at about the same time. At this time, the game's most up-to-date full release version was 1.12, or 1.12.2 if you want to be more specific. This leaves out 1.13. Where is 1.13? Well, 1.13, which would come before 1.14 Update Aquatic, of course, was the technical update called Technically Updated. This was going to be a smaller update that would have an addition of data packs and command-related things, as well as some cool smaller features like wood variants for trapdoors and buttons. Java was also updating textures, which was a rumored feature that was later debunked. So 1.13 was going to be the technical update that Minecraft needed, and 1.14 would follow with the exciting content that would hopefully please a majority of the player base. Fast forward to January 24th of 2018, when a blog post went up on the Minecraft website announcing 1.13 is not a thing, but 1.13 is a thing. From this moment on, 1.13 and 1.14 would be combined, making the update Aquatic instead of 1.14, 1.13. A little confusing, but it's not that bad. It was stated that this would mean the water content would come much sooner than before, quoting literally from that post. All of the content in the previous snapshots for 1.13 would be in 1.14, making all of these snapshots technically the first update Aquatic snapshots for 1.13. I promise I definitely didn't purposely try and make that bit confusing, but 1.14 was combined with 1.14 due to running behind on the World Gen overhaul, and somehow the delay or combination of these updates would make everything come sooner than initially it was going to. The update would come out in Q2 of 2018. According to the Minecraft Wiki, the update was planned for a final release of May 30th. This didn't end up becoming the case. Now, to be clear, I'm not trying to come off that we as a community are entitled to an update at a specific time, because we aren't. MOJANG could decide that Minecraft is done, it's complete, and stop updating the game. Just like that, that would be that. We wouldn't be able to do anything. That would be that. On February 14th of this year, on Valentine's Day, the first true update Aquatic snapshot dropped. This was the first snapshot with new features that were teased back in November. The snapshot added things like turtles, stripped logs, bubble columns, and lots more things. It was a huge snapshot. This was pretty exciting to say the least. I know I was hyped when it came out. Between then and May, more snapshots would come, adding even more features and tweaking and fixing some. This was pretty exciting from a creator standpoint. It was really fun to get to test out and learn each new feature, and it still is fun to learn about each feature. However, with all of that history out of the way, it's time for me to address the problem. Why the update Aquatic might be too big. So I've laid out a few separate arguments or issues or whatever, and it's time to get into them. The first problem with the update is that MOJANG prefers themed updates, like the World of Color update or the Combat update, for example. But this content doesn't even necessarily make sense together this time around. This update is very noticeably two updates combined. Things like stripped logs and tools like the debug stick are very different than features like turtles and tridents. Now, of course, looking at the bigger picture of it all, the community doesn't really care if the content makes sense together. The community cares if the content makes sense in the game. However, I only bring this point up because Mojang prefers themed content updates, so that's already a knock to them. Now, there is a lot of features in this update. Of course, this is a great thing for the players, but it also creates tons of things that may be and will be forgotten or overshadowed. Because of the huge range of features in this update, things like banner markers on maps or varied forms of buttons like acacia buttons may be forgotten. From an update standpoint, this isn't something that is really good. All of the features took time to implement and ideally should be remembered. Now, that's an ideal situation, of course, because, of course, I can't name everything that was added in the 1.11 Exploration update or the 1.5 Redstone update, but these updates had very clear themes and are years behind us now. The update Aquatic adds water stuff, more wood, and lots of other stuff, technical and non-technical. Kind of confusing. Now, those are some smaller points that I'm making about the update, because in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter if the update has a theme, not necessarily, just to Mojang, and it doesn't really matter if you forget a button, it's okay, but the next two arguments are my big points as to why the update Aquatic might be too big. A big update with many features brings the potential for a lot of half-thought-out features that could potentially be more well-rounded, better purposed, and more finely tuned. Some features could end up feeling rushed, or you only are excited about them until you get them, and then they become a sort of what now type of thing. So that means the features lack depth and lack fine-tuning. For example, let's say you go to all the trouble and hard work of getting a trident and building it up with really good enchantments. Then what do you do with it? What is that super good trident really used for? Let's assume you're in a single player setting as well. You could take on an ocean monument with that god trident, but I mean technically that could really be done with a sword and it's not that much harder. And ocean monuments aren't new, so you possibly already done that. And I mean, unless you're in love with ocean monuments, that might be kind of boring for you to go into. Now, of course, not to offend anyone in love with ocean monuments, of course that's cool, and if that's you, go raid 10 ocean monuments with your trident. It'll be really easy, and you'll have a whole lot of fun doing it, and that'll be cool. You'll probably have a few sponges afterwards. So don't get me wrong, ocean monuments are cool and all, but I'm not the biggest fan of them. I don't need to fight 30 of them. So, what do you do with that trident? I mean, I guess you could go fight a drowned with it, right? That's a water mob that the trident would be strong against. However, you probably fought a bunch of those to get your trident in the first place, and maybe you're done with fighting water zombies because it's really not that interesting. You'll probably end up fighting the drowned to get the Nautilus shell, a trident, and then that's that. And also, you're going to be wanting to use looting on the drowned to get those items, and that's a sword. So perhaps with a more focused update, Mojang could have added a water boss that you needed to fight the trident with. Otherwise, it would be pretty hard, say using a sword or a bow or something like that. Then, after killing that boss, you get the Heart of the Sea, kind of like how you get a nether star from the Wither, that would be used to make the conduit. It is a heart, after all, so that would kind of make sense. This would make the conduit, which basically is a new beacon type, a lot more similar to the old, current beacon type. This would also make the conduit and the Heart of the Sea a lot more valuable and rare, a lot harder to get. You could then find the Nautilus shell, the other ingredient needed for the conduit, in shipwreck chests instead of the Heart of the Sea. This cuts out the need to farm drowned obnoxiously because the shell is kind of rare, and gives the trident a little bit more of a purpose and a cool reason for you to get it. Now, of course, the trident and all the other new features are cool. I'm just saying that maybe there could potentially be room for more depth in these features and more purpose in these features. Now, the big thing, the main thing that makes me start to think this update might be a little too big for its own good is its release cycle. The release cycle has been a messy one. The initial 1.12 update released on June 7th, 2017. That's over a year ago. 1.12.2 released in September of 2017, some time ago. Again, we as a community aren't entitled to updates by any means, but that is a relatively long time in the lifespan of this game. This update has been delayed multiple times. It was delayed, axed, and combined in January. Then spring 2018 came and passed with nothing, kind of. This update was to be the first update that both Java and Bedrock Edition would get the new features at about the same time. However, in mid-May, Bedrock Edition got half of the features of this update early. This in itself is an odd thing, splitting an update into two parts semi-randomly based on what is finished, but that's a whole different thing. Java Edition is still in pre-releases. No early update because that was canceled and combined into 1.13. Sure, both are seeing the new features at the same time, but half of the game base, albeit the other half than normal, still gets to use the new features before the other, which, to my understanding, wasn't intended initially. If splitting the update was the initial plan, why was the 1.13 technical update canceled, really? Couldn't it have just been delayed instead? The pre-releases on Java Edition also are very buggy, which is likely a result of the massive amount of features in this update. They are getting better, but as many have said, the pre-releases are more like snapshots still, not an early finished version of this update. And now here we are in late June with no final full release version on either versions of the game. Bedrock Edition doesn't have the second half, Java Edition has none of the full release. The release and rollout of this update has been very messy and odd to say the least. Perhaps this should have been two separate updates after all, or purposely split into two halves on both versions. Overall, I am pretty excited for the update Aquatic. There's tons of new features that are being implemented, and I am excited to get to use them, and of course I'm very thankful that Mojang is a company like it is and continuing to push updates out for this game. That's what's keeping the game alive and keeping the community thriving. I'm really pleased that the oceans are finally getting some attention, but what do you think? Do you think the update Aquatic is too big for its own good? Tell me down below what you're thinking. I'll link some sources that I used in this video in the description below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos like this from me, leave a like on this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, you definitely should. Check out my 1.13 playlist with all sorts of content based around this update, including guides and experiments. My name is Waddles. I will see you next time.